Holy City Center Radio. It is episode 65, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Happy to be with you for what is the last episode of 2022. Nothing scheduled until the new year. Can't believe it. You know, when you're in those first few months of the year, you know, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's flying by, you know, when you hit March. But every December, without fail, you're just like, what? How is this year over already? It just sneaks up on you. I feel like there's a lull in the middle of the year, and then all of a sudden it just ramps up. It's probably the holidays. It just makes things go by quicker. But yeah, last one of the year. Appreciate you all listening. And as I mentioned, should have some fun announcements in the new year as far as the podcast, some changes that are being planned. And I think will be pretty great. And I think you guys will like it. But before then, we have to do this last episode, which is going to be a good one. Today's guest is Shannon Vogt. She is the artistic director of The Void, which is a new Charleston theater company that aims to showcase contemporary plays that highlight the underserved voices of queer, female, and gender nonconforming artists, and they will soon make their debut with a series of pop-up plays. Shannon will tell us so much more about all of that and the future plans for this new company. Should be a really great interview, and I'm excited for you all to hear it. And before we get to the interview, don't forget, Best of Charleston nominations are open. Go to Charleston City Paper's website, and you can see, they usually have a quick way to access it from their homepage, where you can go in and nominate your favorites in Charleston. There's a ton of categories, as I'm sure most of you are aware. So go ahead and nominate them. The nominations do close on December 28th. And then at some point in the new year, they'll tally up, the top, usually like 5 in each category, and then you'll vote for the finalists. But make sure you nominate your favorites, because if, a really great place or person or business, whatever, doesn't get enough nominations, they can't win, of course. So even though it feels like sometimes like I got to vote again on this thing, it's a necessary step to make sure some of your favorites get recognition. And, I'll speak for myself. Before I had won any Best of Charleston awards, the first year I was a nominee, just being listed as a nominee was super helpful for me, as far as getting people who had no idea what Holy City Center was to be like, oh, what is this thing that's nominated for best local blog or website or, Twitter account and things. And there was definitely a noticeable difference, in those, the first year I was nominated, having an uptick in views and follows and stuff. And I'm sure for other businesses, it's the same, people are like, oh, I should go check out that restaurant or bakery or whatever, if people are saying it's one of the best. So even if you don't think your favorite place in town will win, it's still really beneficial for them to be nominated. So just something to think about from my own experience. And of course, if you want to nominate myself / Holy City Center for any of those categories, I would greatly appreciate it. But enough, trying to get votes out of all my listeners. It is time to go on to the interview, which is what you all should be here for anyway. I'm really excited for you to hear this. So without any further ado, let's get to the interview with Shannon Vogt. And joining me now, as promised, is this week's guest, Shannon Vogt. She is the artistic director of The Void, which I talked about a little bit at the top of the show, but who better to give us a real rundown than Shannon herself? So let's go ahead and get that accomplished. Shannon, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, happy to. I've known you for a little while, so I know a little bit about your background. But for those who haven't met you yet, if you could just provide a little bit of information about who you are, where you came from, just anything you think kind of will give people an idea of who you are.
Sure. I moved to Charleston in 2011. And it is home now and forever. I'm originally from Maryland, like right outside of Baltimore. But yeah, I am a voice actor and theater maker who went to College of Charleston, but did not study those things until later. I went to College of Charleston for psychology, and then did 3 years in Chicago to pursue theater, and then came back here 2 years ago.
Nice. Yeah. And I was first introduced to you as a singer. You were in town, performing at, different venues and things like that. And so are you still singing at all or anything?
Not professionally.
Yeah.
I love music. I love writing music, and I'm still still writing music, but it's kind of changed shape the way that it features in my life. It's become definitely like a more private thing. I'll go in and like do vocals every once in a while with friends, but I'm not really gigging anymore. I've really shifted from music back to theater. I kind of did theater, went to music, and now I'm back to theater.
Yeah.
But I love singing. I'll never quit singing altogether.
Good. Yeah, I've always enjoyed you were going and hearing you sing. You're always awesome. And
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I figured you probably weren't because you're probably a little busy with working and this new company and everything. But yeah, I'd also we're definitely going to be talking about the company the most. But also, I think it's fascinating that you got into voiceover work as well. Which I just always think that's super cool that,
I love voiceover.
Yeah. What sort of things, like commercials, like what sort of work have you gotten in that field?
I do a lot of industrials. Like I do a lot of stuff that people have never heard, which is always a bummer. I feel like when you're an actor or voice actor, people are always like, where have I heard you? I'm like, you definitely haven't.
Like corporate programs and stuff like that, you mean, as far as?
It is amazing how many things need a voice actor. I had no idea. I kind of got into it on accident because I was looking for a side hustle when I was pursuing professional theater, like for stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, wait, I can record myself at home and make money. And like, it's flexible and I can do it whenever I want. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, right.
And then when I got into it, I realized how many different things, especially now with like social media. I mean, it's insane. Like the amount of videos that come out that sound like just your regular person talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 9 out of 10 times a voice actor
really
playing a normal person. Like, yeah, like I'll see these auditions and it's like, we want somebody that sounds like a TikToker. Like we want somebody that sounds like, and they're just, there's voices for everything. It's awesome. But yeah, I've done like a couple like small like video games. I've done a couple national things, but the only like really exciting one I can't name right now.
Hasn't come out yet?
Yeah, because it hasn't come out yet.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's really fun. I love it so much. Yeah,
it's really cool. That whole industry is really fascinating to me. And I remember seeing on your like Instagram the first time I saw that you were doing that. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I had like a million questions. I was like, I don't want to bother her though. I might have to have you come back on so we can talk specifically about that because I think it's really fascinating.
Always bother me. Like I love when people get in my DMs and they're like, how did you? Because I love showing people how to do it.
Yeah,
I love being like, here, like websites you can use, and here's the DAW that I use and the mic that I use, and like just teaching other people to do it, especially people in the performing arts, because it's such a wonderful, it's such a wonderful job. And like, if you're already an actor, you can use those skills to do this too. And it's just more work. Yeah,
that makes sense. If you're in the theater, field in any capacity. Well, I mean, specifically acting, of course. I mean, voice acting, it's right there in the title. Maybe people aren't seeing you. You don't have to get in costume or anything, but you're still acting. You have to project something, emotions with your voice or lack of emotion, depending on what the job is, of course. That definitely makes sense that you found your way into that field, from being involved in theater.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really it's script analysis. It's figuring out who you're talking to and what you want from them. And
yeah, right. It's acting. Yeah. It's what it is. It's just a different type of it.
Yeah.
So obviously, acting, theater, performing, whether singing or, theater productions is something that you have, got involved with. And obviously you have a passion for. When did this passion specifically for the theater start? When did you decide, I want to try out for this production, or I want to be involved in this theater? Or, how did it start before you realized, now I'm going to start my own company? Like, what got you into the field first?
So I feel like typical of all theater kids. Like I started really young. I was in middle school and, had the bug, and I was on all the shows in school. But the weird thing is I took a huge break from it. When I went to college, I completely didn't have theater on my radar. My parents were like, not super encouraging for me to go to school for theater. So I just took it off the table. Like, I was like, I can't do this professionally. This is a thing that I love. And it's just not on the table. I got to go do something else. And that's the headspace I was in, in 2011 when I went to College of Charleston. And then shortly after I graduated, I did a show at the Footlight Players, just for fun, just because I loved it and I missed it and I just wanted to be around it again. But it was kind of like an experiment, like I was definitely in that post-grad, like, I have no idea what I'm doing post-graduation. I was very like all over the place.
Oh, I'm quite familiar. I was there myself. I get it.
I did it just to be happy. Like, that was the only reason. And I remember like a very distinct moment where like I walked out on the stage when we were finally taking it out of the rehearsal room and onto the stage, and I got really emotional. And I was like, I miss this so much, like on a deep place in me that I like closed off. I was like, I need to do this. Like, so that's when I packed up and moved to Chicago, and was there and studied theater, for 3 years and came back here, and it just didn't leave. I was like, I'm going to figure out a way to keep doing this, whether that's professionally or building a community space where we get to do this, with one another. And yeah, once it came back, I couldn't ignore it anymore.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think also when you're older, sometimes it's easy to brush off things like, oh, it's just a thing I did when I was a kid. I was in high school, I was in middle school. But then when you do it when you're older and some time has passed and you're like, oh no, I still really love this, you realize it wasn't just some fleeting thing. It's something you're really passionate about.
Well, I think I had a mindset shift too, where like I didn't think I thought that I had to be on a certain path. I thought I had to do things like in this like A, B, C, D kind of order. And I had always been like one of those students, like I always had good grades. I did all the extracurriculars, blah, blah, blah. And then after college, like I was very lost. I went through like a pretty dark time. And I think that I was like, you know what? Life is hard. Like, just be happy. Like, no matter what you have to do to like find some joy in your little speck of existence, like chase that hard. And so I was like, well, this is what I want to do more than anything. So I have to figure out how to make that happen.
And so you've kind of discovered this passion. You got involved with local production companies, and then what was the point where you're like, you know what, I want to create my own theater company? Where did that idea come from, and why did you decide to go forward with it?
So it had been this idea kind of like brewing in the back of my mind when I was in Chicago. I really wanted to come back home. I really wanted to come back here. I love Chicago. Very beautiful. I did not like living there.
No, I get it.
And I wanted to come back home so bad. And I had this idea in my head. I was like, wow, like I would really love to have, this black box space that was doing community theater, focusing on contemporary work, and was specifically focused on highlighting the voices of women and queer folks. That was like my dream. So I came back and I didn't immediately start. It was kind of something I kept close to my heart. And then the weirdest thing happened, which was that I went to go see a show at Footlight, and a woman that I went to school with, had been in a show with, and really loved, was on stage from Chicago.
Oh,
and
wow.
And that was my friend Teresa Elge. And so after the show, and she was so good too. Like she crushed this role. And so afterwards I called her and I was like, hey, I saw you on stage and I have this really crazy idea. And so I told her about The Void and my dream of making this happen. She was like, I'm all in. Let's do it. Let's go. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so her and I brought on 2 more friends, AP Hart and Brianna Morgan, and us 4 kind of refined what we wanted it to be. And yeah, we were like, all right, let's do it. Let's put on a show.
That kismet, it sounds like, right place, right time, all that kind of stuff. And,
Yeah.
pretty cool. So I don't want to be presumptuous, but the name The Void, I'm guessing it's about the lack of representation for the folks you mentioned. Is that where the name came from?
The name has a lot of meanings, but
okay.
one of the things I like about the name is that is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say that it's like it is that, because it was many things. Sure. It was many things, but definitely that's part of it. I think The Void is such a good name for like a contemporary black box space, because like it's everything, it's nothing.
Right.
You build these little worlds and then you immediately tear them down in that space. And so that was part of it too. Kind of the idea of like creation, destruction. But yeah, we also wanted to make additional space in our theater scene that would hold space for us. I mean, we're a group of 3 women and 1 non-binary person, and we're all queer. And we wanted to tell stories that we felt like reflected us. Like a lot of plays we've all seen or worked on are like, there's these 2 queer characters and the stories about their trauma, like they can't just exist.
Right.
So we were like, we really want to just make additional space and have another place for all the super talented actors who are in Charleston to play and get paid to play, and kind of build our community alongside all the other wonderful theaters that already exist here.
You kind of touched on this, and I think the answer to the question I'm going to ask is, probably pretty clear, but I still am going to ask it because I would like to hear your response to it. But why, to you, is representation, and specifically with a theater company that specifically highlights these underserved voices, whether it's women, gender nonconforming, queer, whatever it may be, why is that important to you to have that kind of representation in the theater world?
Ooh, I'll try to make this shorter.
No, take your time.
Yeah. There is something really special about seeing someone who you can relate to and who can tell your story, doing something brave, doing something cool, doing something that you want to do. I know that I have friends that I've made in my life that they would share something about themselves, and I had that moment of like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Oh my God, like I don't have to do this by myself. There are other people here. And I know through our audition process, we had so many people come in and just be like, I'm so happy that there's a place where we can all find each other. And it's just important, because if you don't have anyone who feels the way that you feel or looks the way you look, or you just don't, you can feel really isolated and really alone. And I think that having the representation in a show, I mean, you have no idea who's in the audience. You have no idea what their story is, why they're there, why they showed up that night. But they could be sitting there and see that performance and go, wow, okay, that was incredibly validating,
Sure, yeah.
And when we talk to, I always think about like my younger self and like younger people. And I went and talked to this high school recently and had such a good experience talking to the kids and just being blown away by how like badass and inclusive and like smart they were, and the language they have that we didn't have. And, I just want to continue that. I want to continue that. So like my kids have a better experience than like we did, you know what I mean? And just
absolutely.
Just keep trying to create more space for more people.
Yeah, just as much diversity as there can be never seems like a bad thing to me. I don't know. People just get afraid of these kinds of things or whatever it may be. No, it definitely makes sense. I'm someone, straight, cisgender male, white, who, sees himself represented and has seen himself represented in some capacity in most media, theater, whatever it may be, music, so it took me a while to kind of understand that concept and not realize, because, I didn't think about, oh yeah, my friend who is different from me for whatever reason, whether it's race or gender or sexuality, whatever it may be. Oh yeah, they aren't going through the same thing I am, as far as, you have the idea that their life is different and some of the challenges they face, but you don't realize in media and things like that, not seeing themselves represented, how difficult that can be.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's just, me trying to be like, yeah, it took a while to understand that and realize how privileged I was to have something that may seem kind of silly to people. Like, what do you mean a sitcom that has a white guy in it? Well, who really cares? You're like, no, you see yourself in these things, especially when you're younger and you relate to it.
Yeah. And I think like that really comes through with like the stories of like queer relationships and how it's, in our media, we've kind of started to be like, oh yeah, like it's totally normal to see like two white gay guys. Like that's fine.
Right.
But, like,
right.
Oh God, they better not be people of color or be women.
Right. Right. Exactly. Right.
And I remember somebody said to me one time, they were like, yeah, like I totally get it. Like if two men fall in love, but like when women do, it's just gross. And I was like, what? Like,
wow.
What are you talking about? Like,
yeah.
And I think, when I came out, my parents were like, but you're dating, at the time I was dating a man, and they were like, but you're dating a man. I was like, yes, but I'm pansexual. I've dated women. I've dated men. I've dated people all over the spectrum of gender and sexuality. And they were like, but you're dating a man. Like they couldn't
process it. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I don't think that given this situation, I felt safe enough to come out until I was, to be honest. But, just because having those conversations with your parents can be really hard.
Oh, I can't imagine. Yeah.
And yeah. So, and I think that that's something that, people still struggle with every single day. And we just want to create space for those conversations with people that understand it, people who've gone through it. And the way that I communicate best is through performing. I think that's why I was doing music for so long, is I was trying to tell stories, and this is just the way that I feel called to do that. And I have 3 just like badass people by my side, which makes it feel even more powerful.
That's awesome. Yeah. And a couple things. One, I totally get, excuse me, what you're saying. Like sometimes it's easier to express your feelings through some form of art than just like saying it to someone in regular conversation. That definitely makes sense to me for sure. And also just real quick with the representation, the other side of that too, isn't just that, people see themselves somewhere where they maybe haven't before, someone in their community, someone they can relate to. But the opposite of that is introducing everyone else who doesn't belong to one of those communities to them. And and better understanding where they come from, what they've dealt with, and what they continue to go through. I think that's really important too. Even well-meaning people who aren't specifically not trying to consume this kind of media from any particular group and has good in their heart. They just it's you just don't know everything about every single person, and so that I'm sure that's going to be helpful for some folks too, and it just makes everybody more well-rounded and better understanding each other, which, as you are well aware, these days is not a lot of understanding going around. And also the, LGBTQ community facing so many attacks around the country these last couple years. I'm sure that didn't factor into you creating this, but that's something that had to be on your mind as well. Especially in a state like South Carolina, we're seeing, book bans and all this other stuff as well.
Absolutely. I mean, when we hear these stories, it's more just like, I'm not going to lie, like it is scary. Like there's a part of you that's like, oh my God,
Sure.
Like it's really, really scary and jarring, but it's kind of like fuel to keep going. Like it's kind of like, that's why this is important.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
for
why
sure.
this needs to happen. And that's why I love what you said about the people that we can reach, like aren't used to seeing these kinds of relationships. Cause I think with theater, you have like a breathing human being in front of you, you know, like
right.
there's a human being in the same room with you. And especially at our shows that are going to be very intimate and the actors are going to be very close to you. It's like, it's very hard to ignore a breathing person in front of you, like
Absolutely.
a living being in front of you, and to share it in that humanity and to be like, you know, you feel something when you're in community like that, when you're in proximity like that, you feel something. And I hope that people that maybe have not been exposed to these kinds of stories and these kinds of relationships can maybe see a piece of themselves in those characters, even if they don't relate to those characters, you know, in terms of their gender and sexual expression.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. No, that's very well said. And I think, like I said, there's plenty of very well-meaning people too that they'll benefit from that. And yeah, that's it. The base level, we're all humans and we all can relate to each other in some fashion. Obviously, our individual details of our lives can vary, but yeah, at the bottom level, there's always something that you can relate to.
Yeah.
Well, you just mentioned you know, the works that you hope to bring forward and you know, the actors on the stage. What do you currently have planned as far as productions? What do you have multiple in the works? One, where we stand with productions and where can people start to see you guys actually putting together some productions for people?
So this year we're going to put on 3 plays and they're going to be in 3 different locations.
You're
because we're just
talking,
doing...
sorry to interrupt, 2023 as when you say this year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like,
So,
three productions in the next couple weeks would have been tough, but who
no
knows?
way.
so,
No way.
So sorry, I wanted to clarify for everybody. Yes, the 2023.
In 2023,
yes.
we're gonna put up 3 shows. We're kind of calling them like pop-up shows because we don't have our own space. So we are renting different places in the city. Our first one is going to be Succulents, The Art of Adulting by Leah Roth Bersanti. And it is going to be at the Queen Street Playhouse. Brian and Kyle of the Footlight Players have been so great and so encouraging. And they actually are donating their rehearsal space upstairs at Footlight that we have painted, the void painted and turned into a black box theater.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be having our first show there.
Awesome.
And that's February 3, 4, and 5. But tickets are on sale now at thevoidtheater.org. Yeah, we're really excited. Our friend Mari Sorsa is directing it. And she's, some people that might know her from Nameless Numberhead. Her and her husband Henry are great friends and super funny.
Oh, they're great.
So I'm so excited to have her directing our show. Yeah, we're really, really excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love Mari and Henry as well. They're both great.
They're awesome.
They're great folks. So I'm glad to hear that Mari's involved with the first production. That's awesome. And you mentioned that you don't have a permanent space, but your goal is to eventually have one, correct?
Yeah. Our goal is to have one. TBD.
Yeah, I'm sure even if you do have something in the works, you can't talk about it yet. But the plan is to have your own space, you know, and not have to worry about renting out and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the dream is to have... I've modeled this vision very much off of a bar in Chicago called it was called Front Bar. And it was a bar attached to the Steppenwolf Theater Company, but it had a black box in it. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And so that's like my dream one day, is to have something very similar.
Very cool. Oh, and I'm sure that would do well here in Charleston, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's Charleston. You have to have a bar.
Yeah, I know. There's really not much of an option in this city, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that's the dream. We're very small. We are a nonprofit, so we're like pretty tiny and just getting started. But this is our very first round of shows, and we're excited about it. Heck
yeah. And as you should be, this is, you know, quite the accomplishment. Creating your own company, period, is whether nonprofit or otherwise is pretty awesome. I know the work it can take to do that, and then having to put together production. I mean, yeah, it's got to be exciting and scary and all that good stuff.
It definitely is. It's I'm actually surprised at how much I've been enjoying the admin side of life. Like, I've always been a performer, so
yeah.
I well, outside of my voiceover business, but it's really just like emailing with clients. It's nothing too crazy. And like, building a website, but I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
no real like art, admin, marketing, like training at all. And so I've really been enjoying it. I was shocked at how much fun the other side of stuff was too.
Yeah, I some of the stuff I do with the site and everything, same thing. I'm always like, I would not have thought I would have enjoyed doing X, Y, and Z. But I think when
Yeah,
it's something you're passionate about, it makes a huge difference. It's something you're working
absolutely.
towards. Whereas if you were doing admin for something else, you probably wouldn't feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, it's very exciting times for the folks that are listening. Who can, like, when you do have productions in the future, are you going to have like casting calls? Like, who can try out? Like, how does all that going to work? Or is it just going to
Oh,
be
I'm
your
so glad you
folks?
asked that. No, I'm so happy you asked that because we are open to everybody. If you call Charleston home, you will get an audition slot. We want to see and meet as many people as possible. So like we already had our auditions for this year, for this season, but our next round of auditions will be next fall. But we're always accepting submissions. So people can go to our website and send us their headshot and resume. But we really want to be for the community. We don't want to keep casting us and like the same folks. We really want to be able to create a space where anybody can come and have the chance to audition and have that experience of auditioning. And also, I mean, you never know. Like people come in who've never been in a play in their life and they're brilliant. So I don't want to not see them because they don't have, a huge resume. Like I really think it's fun to go into it just not really looking at that and just looking at the person in front of you and seeing what they bring. Because I'm constantly like blown away.
Yeah.
Our auditions were so fun. The people that came out were awesome.
That's good. Yeah, no, I mean that means the production will also be great because if everybody who came out was doing well and you could only have a handful of them, you got the best of the best who tried out. So I'm sure it'll go great. And for everyone who's listening who either may be interested in auditioning at some point or want to buy tickets to one of these productions, specifically the first one coming up here in the beginning of the new year, or just anything they want to find out more or help out, where can they find everything involving The Void?
Our website is thevoidtheater.org. We're on Instagram at thevoidchs. And yeah, please reach out. There's, you can slide in our DMs. You can shoot me an email. Yeah, that's kind of where everything is. Tickets are for sale on our website, as well as like, if you want to submit your headshot and resume, that's on there too.
And the critical question for me, and this always trips me up, and you may know the difference between the two, and I have been too lazy to look. Is it theater ER or RE at the end?
That's really funny that you ask. So the spelling in Britain is RE. And so all of it's both. It's audience, it's like audience preference. It's RE or ER. We spell it RE.
Okay, that was the first part. Your website. So if they go to the website, theaters with RE. So I wanted to make sure we had that.
Yes. Yes.
But also,
all of our stuff is RE.
Okay, I was also just curious because I've never looked it up what the difference was. So that's really all it is. Is just across the pond they prefer RE.
Yeah.
I think it looks cooler. It makes it seem more official to have the RE. So I'm glad that you went that route. It makes it seem more like, oh, we're very serious about our theater.
It's weird. If I'm spelling it like I'm talking about a physical space.
Yes.
Then sometimes I say ER.
Right.
Like
right.
I'll write ER if I'm like, oh, we're going to rent this theater space. Like, but then if I'm talking about a producing company,
yes,
or like a company of actors, like I do RE.
I think that's what I usually do too. Like if I'm writing something, if the company or whoever didn't provide it, I'm like, that's kind of what I usually do by default. If I can't find it somewhere else, that's usually what I'll do as well. So, all right, I'm glad I was like on the right page for the most part there.
Yeah.
But all right, so I think we covered a lot. But is there anything that you want to share about the company or otherwise that we didn't get to that you think is important, or just anything else at all that you would like to say about what you're working on?
I don't think so at the moment. I'm in like ticket selling, learning how to run a nonprofit land. So I'm having a blast doing it. But yeah, just please come see our shows. We're super excited. And we're really excited to just kind of create and build out this community.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to see what you build, and looking forward to coming out to some shows and things. And I'm also glad that you are back in Charleston.
Yay, me too.
I know when you left, I was like, oh no, I hate when good people leave, and so I was excited when I saw you came back. What's it been 2 years ago now? Something like that. Yeah.
God, it flew by, but yeah.
Yeah. Always glad when the good folks stay or come back to Charleston. So excited to see.
I'm never leaving again, so don't worry.
All right, good. Because some of my friends are still like, oh, maybe I'm going to leave. I'm like, you can't, because I won't allow it. But
yeah, I won't allow it.
But I'm very glad you're back, and also creating a company, and I think it's going to be awesome. So I very much look forward to it, and I thank you so much for coming on and giving me all the details.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And that is it. We can put a bow on episode 65 and on Holy City Center Radio for the year 2022. Again, thank you all so much for listening, whether you were here from the beginning of the year or are just tuning in for the first time now. I really appreciate everyone who gave an episode or multiple episodes listens. I really, really appreciate anybody who tunes in. If you want to help out Holy City Center, be sure to go to holycitycenter.com/shop. You can pick up some merchandise. You can also go to patreon.com/holycitycenter, and you can essentially donate through that. There's all those details on there. And I've been able to do some fun things for some of the people who signed up as Patreon supporters. Been able to do ticket giveaways exclusively for them. I don't post it on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else. It's only for those folks. I've been able to give them discount codes to events and, promo codes for pre-sales for shows in town and things like that. So definitely is beneficial. And I think this smallest package is $2 a month. You can cancel anytime, so for $2 a month, and then I hook you up with like a free tickets to something, it's already paying for itself. So be sure to check that out. And as always, if, giving money to me is not something that you can do or want to do, totally get it. But you still want to support. I really appreciate it. There are many ways to do that: liking, retweeting, sharing, all that good stuff. Letting people know, hey, you should check out this episode. I think you'd really like this interview or this topic or whatever. All that stuff helps. So to all of you who have been doing that and continue to, thank you so much. Also, thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins, who produces each and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And, of course, Tyler Boone, whose music you hear throughout each episode as well. I hope you all have an amazing holiday season, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. I hope, you have a good time over these next few weeks. Your new year is safe and things get off on the right foot. I can't wait to get back with you guys in the new year. So, stay safe out there, have fun, be healthy. And, like I said, it won't be too much longer, but we'll speak again in the new year. And until then, good night and good luck.